it going? So on this episode, we're gonna start inspecting the Civic for racing. We actually probably should have done this before we attempted to race in the first place.
We should have, but we didn't.
But here we are.
Yeah, and because it didn't happen, because we didn't actually get to race the thing, we kind of maybe lucked out. We might find something really ugly because this does have like 230,000 miles on it. We don't know what's been replaced.
It's been in at least one accident. We have suspicions that it was in a second accident at one point in time.
Yes.
So
plan of attack for today is to show you guys how to do a little shakedown on the front, how to identify components that are worn, and potentially how to replace them depending upon what we find.
Yep. Yeah, we have a good hunch that the suspension and a lot of the bushings are bad.
Yeah,
most likely.
Pretty screwed up.
But
yeah,
we're not gonna just throw parts at it, so we're gonna inspect it first.
Exactly. Yep. So what's really common with these things are bushings, control arm bushings. There's a couple of them. You know, back one and then that guy, and then you've got the upper wishbone. Those things tend to have some issues. In fact, I had a hatch that they were so worn out on that once I took the wishbone out, the upper control arm out, the bushings literally fell out. So that's pretty bad and that can happen. So we're gonna just kind of look it over and figure out, and then we're gonna show you guys how to fix it.
Yep.
All right, do this.
Let's get started. Alright, so the first part of the shakedown is to get the car obviously up off the ground. Don't loosen up your lug nuts quite yet. That's a very common mistake. People get ahead of themselves, and then the play you're feeling is because your tire is loose. I'm really glad you drove this through the mud first. Okay, so the first thing we're going to check is your inner and outer tie rod. And in order to do that, you place one hand at the 9 o'clock position and the other hand at the 3 o'clock position and move side to side. Surprisingly solid. The next thing we're going to check is going to be your wheel bearing. So you want your 12 and 6. And this is why you want to put a jack stand, is in the event of this failing, you don't want to smush your hand. Wow, good so far. The last thing we're going to check before taking our wheel off is the lower ball joint. Now I was always taught to use a pry bar. You just slide it between the ground and the tire and lift up. And if you feel any form of a popping, it means your ball joint's got play in it. Which is good. So now we can take the tire off and visually inspect everything, and we're going to check our sway bar links as well, which you got to check by hand. Okay, so another good indication that you may have shot suspension parts is your tire wear. Now, unfortunately, we bought these tires used and haven't put enough miles on them to really break them in yet, so we can't go off of it. But if you bought brand new tires for your car 3,000 miles down the road, you inspected them, and you see it's worn too much on the inside or the outside, you most likely have a camber issue. Sometimes it'll get choppy in the middle and your toe might be off. So that's one important thing to look at while you're here. Taking the lug nuts off. Alright, so this tire's a little hard to tell. Like I said, we bought them used. But what will happen a lot of times when your camber is off, tire will sit like this. This is slightly exaggerated, and this inner siping will get worn down. If it's too much the other way, same effect. So that's a really good indicator that your alignment's off, and most likely have some worn out parts and whatnot you need to look at. If your toe is off, you can actually push the tire like so, and you can wear the center tread. Vice versa. So again, look over your tires really well. Another thing though, don't necessarily assume you have suspension parts. If your tires are low or overinflated, that too can also wear through them quite quickly. So a lot of things to check. You're already here, be sure. Alright, so we have our wheel off, and now we're going to visually inspect everything. Sometimes shakedowns can be a little misleading, so it's good just to visually check. Tie rod looks really good. It's showing signs of age. It's not super tight, but the boot's solid. There's no grease leaking out of it, any of that kind of stuff. If it's been replaced before, there might be a zert fitting on there. So if it feels a little loose, if it's got the zert fitting, you can maybe put a little bit of grease in it and tighten it back up. So that's important to check for. Our sway bar link is definitely getting worn down and it's got some cracks on it. That's one of the things that we found so far. Our CV axle and CV boots look really good. There's no grease leaking out of them. There's no tears. If those start to fail, you'll usually hear a clicking noise when you're turning. And once the boot gets torn, they'll get filled up with gravel and sand, and it'll take them out fairly quickly. So that's important to check while we're here. Looks like the previous owner put new front brakes on it. The rotors look really good. He even put the set screws back in. The pads look fantastic, and it appears this side got a new caliper to it. So that's really good. I'm not going to check that too much. If it looks old, you can slide the caliper using a small pry bar or screwdriver. See if your slides are freezing up on you. The lower ball joint looks definitely worn, and the upper control arm bushings and ball joint are definitely showing signs of their age. Probably never replaced. The ball joint's starting to actually crack a little bit. Again, no grease coming out of it. Most likely factory, so it's got well over 200,000 miles on it. The only other thing that I'm starting to see here is the strut is starting to get some buildup on it. Most likely starting to slowly leak. Anytime you're looking at that, you're going to see rust. That's not too concerning. You primarily just want to check for fluid leaks. Everything else looks pretty good where the lower portion of the fork for the strut mounts to the lower control arm. Same thing, bushings are definitely starting to get worn. So something we want to keep in our mind. Brake lines look solid. The sway bar bushing on this side looks really good. So yeah, I think we're set to start tearing apart the other side and seeing what we can find. Alright, so we're going to shake down this side now. We'll see what we find again. This is going to be a little bit of a surprise. Oh, still surprisingly does feel fairly solid for being an old car. So let's get the wheel off and take a better look. Oh, right off the bat, I'm pretty sure that we need to put struts on this side as well. Looks like it's starting to get some leakage going on. The upper ball joint is definitely cracked. The bushings don't look the best. Tie rod is fairly solid, which is surprising. So on this side, we actually do have a cracked CV boot. Now there's two ways to go about it. You can replace the entire CV axle if you want, which is kind of spendy. Or you can replace just the boot. I don't know how confident you are in your abilities. The boot isn't too bad, but you do have to separate the knuckle, which can be a pain in the butt. It's also very, very messy. It's definitely a lot cheaper though. And as well on this side, our sway bar link is also extremely cracked. Yep. And much like the other side, the rest of the bushings have just the normal wear and tear, slowly showing signs of cracking. So yeah, so at this point we just gotta make a game plan. Alright, so everything's inspected. We did find out that our sway bar links are really, really bad. So that's what we're gonna go do. Bad. They're cracked.
They're really bad. Like when it comes to identifying issues with rubber, it has a lot to do with what they visually look like. Beyond just simply it falling apart, you can tell that there's like a dryness that they'll look like. It'll be little cracks in it, and it'll just look kind of grainy. And
you want to check for holes and stuff in the rubber as well.
Definitely, you don't want holes in rubbers. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're gonna go pick those up. They run about $18 a side. Depending on where you go, you might be able to find them cheaper, a little bit more.
We're gonna take care of that, but first we're gonna go grab some grub.
Yeah, let's go grab lunch.
Do some food.
See you guys.
Food. And we're gonna when we come back, we're gonna replace these components with a full stomach. So let's do this.
I'm hungry.
Okay. What you got there?
Yeah, this is a high horsepower mod we're gonna do. It's like 60 horse.
You're gonna do a video on that? Yep, thanks. You too. Alright, so we got our sway bar and links. They are about the simplest thing ever. They are literally a long bolt and a bunch of little rubbers. Some concave washers as well. So there's a little bit to these things, but not really. It was actually all of like $20 for everything, not $20 a piece, because they are this basic version. Evidently there's another one that looks like a more typical sway bar end link. It has the rod, it has almost like these little ball joints on each end of it, and those are the ones that cost about $20 a piece. So anyways, here we go. And the tools that you need to replace it are a 12 millimeter box end wrench and 12 millimeter socket. I guess mission accomplished.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine. Thankfully,
Yeah.
So
I don't know why that always happens. Everything that we're working on, whether it's the tricycle, the drift cooler, the legacy, anything, this guy, I always end up bleeding. So, all right. So hopefully this is informative and I don't know, you guys learned something maybe.
Yeah.
At least how we go about identifying steering and suspension problems.
And the proper tools needed to work on cars and replace end links and stuff.
The very complicated 12 millimeters and Sawzall. So yeah, thanks very much for watching. You're going to see us on the next video, which is likely going to be the next Rallycross.
Yeah, that's the plan.
Yeah, so thanks you guys for watching. We'll see you next time.